Welcome to Data Leaders Show. I am Deval Bhatt, and today I have Elizabeth Peters with us. Elizabeth, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Deval. It's awesome to be part of your very first show.
You are currently working as a senior strategy analyst for Mueller Quaker, and a lot of people know you because you are one of the top students in the first ever graduating cohort of Berkeley's data science program, one of the top data science programs in the nation. So I'm very excited about this interview, mainly because you have some fun stories. You have been involved in some very unique projects, especially at the intersection of analysis, policy, and strategy. So this is going to be one of those interviews where we are going to do a lot of fun zooming in and zooming out on data and how it relates with policy and strategy and whatnot. So you ready to jump in?
Yeah, I can't wait to talk.
Awesome, awesome. So first off, tell us exactly what is the intersection, what happens at the intersection of analysis, strategy, and policy, and what makes it so interesting? Why is it your area of passion? Tell us a little about that.
I think this area, so if you kind of think of the Venn diagrams of those three areas, like that middle is a real place where data scientists can make a huge change in the world, or at the very least, their companies. And kind of going through the MIDS degree has kind of enlightened me to the various aspects of those different quadrants. Before coming into the program, I thought it was all about analysis and kind of just the numbers and the data, and kind of now that I've kind of grown as a data scientist and I guess a person, kind of see there's way more out there in which data scientists can make an impact.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, so something I've been working on at work at Mueller is an intersection of a lot of analysis and strategy. So one thing we work at a company where I sell yogurt. So we're trying to forecast our sales change when, for example, we change the price at Walmart, or if we have a feature ad at Kroger. So how can we predict the expected lift in sales? And it's in the past we did some analysis on that, but where kind of I came in was providing some more advanced approaches, bringing in additional data. So, for example, what if one of our competitors goes on promotion at the same time? Or what about the seasonality of yogurt, which there is seasonality to yogurt, if you didn't know that.
Oh, wow.
But kind of bringing in additional data and building out a predictive model with regression. So it's much more robust than what we had before. So it's been able to help us drive our strategy with analysis more so than we did before.
Wow, yeah, that's so you're actually looking at is it real time? Are you looking at the data in real time, looking at the lift? Is real time as it gets, or is it more of a reactive analysis?
It's kind of both. It's actually both like forward looking. So what do we expect our lift to be? When should we time our promotions? Kind of thinking into the futures, like as we're planning out our promotion calendars with retailers, but also backward looking too. As in the real time for us is about a week lag. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of as soon as we get the data. So kind of as soon as data comes back, we can evaluate, did we do what we expected to do, and if we did or didn't, why, what happened to make it different than what we expected.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. There is always this in the world where I come from. There is analysis happening in the ad budgets and bidding and whatnot. So it's funny how it ties back to the transactional sales model
Yeah,
in the retail world. So that's very
yeah.
very interesting. What are some of the other projects that you're very excited about or that you have performed that relates with this kind of work?
Something else that we've learned in the MIDS program, and I think is a key to being a data scientist, is the idea of performing experiments and kind of coming up with hypotheses and then testing those hypotheses. So I've been more involved with supporting more hypothesis-driven experiments around promotion structure. So, for example, like a promotion that says get $1 off 2 yogurts better than buy one get one free. Like, and the net value to the consumer is exactly the same, but does phrasing it in a different way make it more beneficial to us? So we're working to kind of further that experimentation, test those hypotheses, and understand how consumers engage with those different offer structures. It was really exciting, kind of a really cool way to kind of take data science into our decision making.
Very cool, very cool. And how does that relate with the strategy at the very high level? Have you seen that impact any decision making at the very high business level?
Yeah, definitely. Like as we kind of did some testing and say, um, should we do like a buy three get $2 free, or buy three get $1 off? Some different ways to approach promotions, and we've taken that to our customers, which then that's put out into the marketplace. So if any of your listeners are in Florida, they're probably familiar with Publix and kind of the weekly ads that they have. And for our yogurt, we've kind of tested different scenarios that ended up being placed in the ad, which is really kind of cool to see kind of our experiments kind of come to fruition in reality.
Right. Yeah, that's very cool. You and I were chatting a little a couple days ago, and you mentioned that you really enjoy analyzing consumer behavior, but it has also gotten you rekindled into other areas of passion through the data science world. What are some of those areas, and where do you see yourself applying this?
Yeah, something that I've become really interested over the course of the MIDS program was in applying data science to higher education. So higher ed was something had an interest in coming out of my undergraduate degree, but I didn't want to pigeonhole myself in that area, so kind of went into the real world business. But over the course of kind of various coursework and kind of interactions with and thinking about my education in this space, I became really interested in kind of how can data be used to make higher ed kind of a better place for everybody. It kind of started in one of our classes. I wrote a paper with a fellow student, Brad McMinn, where we looked at how it was in the legal and ethics class, which a lot of people are like, why do data scientists have to take legal and ethics and things like that? And that class really changed how I viewed kind of what data science was, and that kind of is where the policy piece comes into play. But we looked at how data could be used in different ecosystems of education, from like traditional brick and mortar universities like Berkeley on campus to the MIDS degree, and then even taking it further to MOOCs and what is that? How does data play in these different spaces? I think there's a lot of opportunity for the use of data in higher ed in the future that can essentially be part of the relationship between the student, making sure they get to the right school and the right degree that'll make them economically prosperous in the future. I heard a statistic that maybe I think like 50% or so of students would have been worse or would have been better off not even going to college. And when you think about that, that's just crazy. So how can data make that process better? And that's really, I think, a lot of opportunity, especially kind of going back to the policy and data and policy and analysis and strategy that I've become really passionate about.
Wow. So help me understand if I'm hearing this right. What you're doing is you're helping people find meaningful, engaging careers using data to help people find academic programs that's going to give them meaningful, engaging careers, and at the same time solve the $1 trillion education debt problem that's happening in today's world. That's pretty big. That is big thinking, Elizabeth. That's amazing.
That would be the ideal. I think like you said, it's a big problem to solve and take. But I think it's higher education has kind of been this dinosaur in terms of data, and not really having the need to change, but kind of as the rate of tuition increases and debt increases, I think in the near future, universities are going to be forced to kind of reinvent themselves. And I want to be that'd be so cool to be part of that change and help drive it.
Oh yeah, that's reinvention of education. That's a pretty big project. I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
would love to continue to chat with you about that in future interviews. But let's talk a little about. Let's switch the gears a little bit. I know that you have quite a bit of experience working on cross-functional teams based on your career history and whatnot. And what is your advice for connecting data across different departments, different teams within an organization? Uh, Give us some thoughts on that.
Yeah, probably this has been really key in kind of the MIDS program is kind of thinking about this it's and thinking about the role of a data scientist in kind of the organization. Something that I think is important to think about is the organizational structure itself and who are the stakeholders, who are the decision makers when you're presenting, who's the audience itself. In my case, a lot of the time somebody else is presenting the work that I've done. So kind of making sure you're distilling it down, the kind of even if it's really high skill analytics that you've done, it's like really cool predictive models. It's essentially becomes a game of telephone where the distance between who does the analysis and who's presenting it, kind of if you're whispering in people's ears, you might lose the message on the way. So making sure that the most important points are communicated up front, so then that if somebody else is presenting that work, they'll be able to share it. I'll show you an example of something I've done recently at work where we kind of that game of telephone came into play in a very true way. So you see my screen. It doesn't really matter what is on the screen, but essentially my company hired a consulting company to kind of provide some analysis. It was really good for us, really helped us understand what was going on, and presented us back like a 300-page deck. And a 300-page deck is not useful for us as a yogurt company to kind of take and implement that in the market, help us sell more yogurt with our retailers. So this is an example of a slide that they presented to us. This little red dot here is us. It doesn't matter what it's probably confusing even to you and to viewers to see like what is even going on here. But it's essentially saying is like for every additional kind of space on shelf that a brand would have, what's the impact to revenue, which is along the y-axis, and the impact to volume, so the amount of yogurt sold, which is on the x-axis. So if you see this little red dot, we're positive in one of the directions. So I took this slide and turned it into something that was way more useful to our sales teams that they could then take to present and influence our retail partners. So you see now this is us. So things on this side of the line are positive. This side of the line are negative to the category revenue. So really taking kind of this crazy slide with lots of information into something distilling it into something much more meaningful that somebody else could go and take that. So that's a really good example of like the person who actually did that work was probably like 2 people away, and then they presented it to us, and I had this deck, and now I'm giving it to somebody else who's going to present it to somebody else.
Data gets lost in the translation for sure, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome, by the way. So much stimulus overload in the first slide versus the second slide, crystal clear understanding of what you're trying to convey, and I think that's a critical skill for a data scientist, being able to communicate data in a way that that resonates with the stakeholders, that doesn't overload them and doesn't create that stimulus overload. So pretty impressive work there. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that with us. So it's beyond just the technical aspects of communication, going beyond that, learning how to make it clear and easy to communicate. Going beyond that, have you had a chance to? Can you give us some of your thoughts on the social or the political or the psychological aspects of data within an organization, different departments within an organization?
Yeah, you have to think about what matters to the decision maker, and sometimes people are skeptical of data, sometimes they embrace it. So understanding how to frame your influence in a way that matters to them and they can attach to. So an example of where I was not so successful is I kind of had an idea for an enhancement to a product, and we had the capability to do it. I validated kind of with the technical team that we could do it. We had the ask from a client that they wanted it. But so I was like, we can do it. People want it, but bringing that to my manager and in turn kind of the product team, they didn't really latch on to it because what they cared about was revenue and what revenue opportunity there might be. So the project kind of died and dwindled away, even though I really think it could have been valuable to the organization. And had I had the ability to go back and kind of rework it, I probably would have and attached some sort of value to it. Something that kind of we're coming back to now is kind of as I complete the MIDS program is remembering that people aren't always rational. People like to think they're rational, but you've heard of things like sunk cost fallacies and confirmation biases. And as you read about those kind of theoretically, you think that you might be immune to them. But in reality, you're not. So something that I think is really important is before you kind of dig deeper into kind of the decision you're making is really make sure you validate the assumptions, like literally write them on the whiteboard. Like, this is what I think our assumptions are, and agree on the reality of the situation, because those might be different before you start the conversation. If you identify that up front, you could save yourself a lot of headaches in the future.
Wow, very cool. Yeah, I come from marketing background, so we have a very famous concept in marketing where it says that people make decisions emotionally, and then they use logic to rationalize those decisions. So when you're marketing, you have to try to emotionally persuade them, but then provide them the logical reasons to rationalize their decisions.
Yeah.
But that's, what you're saying is that as a data scientist, you have to put your rational brain to make the right decisions, but then use your emotional brain to persuade
Mm-hmm.
people to follow through on those decisions. So
Exactly.
flipping the equation there, pretty cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. So switching gears one more time. You recently wrote an article on perception of online degree programs and using educational platforms like 2U. It's an educational platform that powers our educational program, online program. So you recently wrote an article about the perception of those online programs, and it was a very well written blog and had got a lot of social interactions. Could you add more color to what makes online graduate programs particularly challenging, and at times even more challenging than offline programs? Could you please
Yeah.
add some color to that?
And I think we all know that there's a lot of stigma attached to online education. I kind of hear stories about kind of University of Phoenix and these like fake schools that are out there that like rob students and have poor graduation rates. But I think there's slowly times are changing, and programs like MIDS that's powered by 2U and others are kind of will help to change the face of higher education. You think back, like I kind of relate this to kind of the idea of telecommuting or working from home. Like maybe 10 years ago, no one would even think about working from home. And even like my previous role, I worked from home all the time because I had no need to be in the office. And my parents, who have kind of been going to the office every day, was like, "Do you even work?" I'm like, "Yes, I work, but there's no need for me to. No one is in the office that I need to talk to." I so there's like I think online education is kind of on that same train. Like slowly, as more reputable universities like Berkeley or other programs that have good online, other schools like Yale and now USC all have these great online programs that are really going to change the face of online education and higher education as a whole. Um, yeah, when these degrees can come from like high quality, reputable schools, and especially when they offer programs in areas where we need professionals in our society with those skills, like data scientists. You kind of hear the McKinsey reports, like the U.S. will be, I don't know, 1 million people short of kind of the need for data scientists. This is a place where you and I don't have to uproot our lives and like leave work and to go back to school. This is like crazy. Like when would you do that? So I mean, I'm so fortunate that I was able to find this degree and kind of accomplish a goal that I had without having to change my life around, which is really kind of cool and kind of really hopefully others can experience the same thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have experienced online education in several different formats. I was enrolled in Georgia Tech online
Mm-hmm.
engineering program about 10 years ago. I was actually going to go on campus, and then I got a job, so I switched to online. And I got videotapes. I got videotapes that I
Mm.
would put in my VCR to play
Oh
the
wow.
lectures. So that was the times. That was the times. And then I also took classes from Stanford, where I would actually see streaming lectures.
Hmm.
And then and this is the final frontier here, what we are doing at Berkeley, and it's the educational the platform to you is pretty cutting edge, and you can really see everything there. It's really more engaging from my experiences.
Yeah.
It's more engaging to do it online than it could have ever been offline. So
Yeah.
that's my experience, but I'm of course biased because I love the
Yeah.
program. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how technology has changed, and
Yeah.
like, um, and it's almost as if like our experience with Berkeley. Like, think about the. I mean, going back to think about a data scientist. Like, think about all the data that they could be collecting on us, and one kind of use it to promote, make sure we're successful in the program, but also like understand how we're engaging with the content and how we're learning. And in that way, like online education is almost better than a traditional program because you have all these more data points other than like one test, one homework. So it's kind of when you step back and think about it as a data scientist, it's really kind of cool where the future is.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you were at the most recent immersion program. They put neurofeedback things on our head, and they were doing some experiments on the group's ability to absorb the content and communicate that. So that's coming. Variable technology combined with educational platforms to really revolutionize the way educational content is being consumed and applied as well. So very excited that you shared that, Elizabeth. I think
Yeah.
there is a lot of like you said, there are a lot of metrics out there on how the content is being consumed, and it's going to change the way education happens in future. So
Yeah.
last question for you. I know you're a busy woman. Gotta get one quick question out of you before you get going. Tell us what you do, what you plan to do after you graduate. What are some of the projects that you can't wait to start? Both, and if you want to talk about your personal life, you're more than welcome to. But also in your professional life, what are you very excited about to do now that you're about to graduate?
Well, I guess personally, I can't wait to watch TV again. Things or just relax, have a spare night free. But I guess a little kind of more seriously, I do Olympic weightlifting. It's kind of something I picked up through CrossFit and decided to focus on just lifting. I'm hoping to qualify for national level competition. So I'm looking forward to being able to put more time into kind of training and focusing on that once I'm done in a couple months. Professionally, I'm thinking about kind of where I want to kind of pursue my career, whether it's kind of getting deeper into market research and data in that space, or kind of pursue kind of my passion in higher education and kind of being a data scientist in that space. So I'm looking forward to kind of the next couple of months and weeks and having and but most importantly having my evenings free once more.
I hear you. I hear you. So you're looking at powerlifting, strong weights, heavy weights, and also the education future
Yeah.
of the country and the nation
Yeah.
and the world. So what would people do to get in touch with you? How can they get in touch with you? I'm sure a lot of people would want to get in touch with you to pick your brain, to probably get some advice from you, probably to hire you, to to do more interviews like this with you. How do they get in touch with you?
Probably the best way is either my website, so it's elizabethhpeters.com, Elizabeth with the Z, or you can email me at elizabeth.peters.06@gmail.com. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So after hearing this interview, I think people are going to be so excited about getting in touch with you. I think this is a great show. Best of luck with your, with helping data connect with the strategy and policy in the education space. And Once you are ready for an update, ping me. Let me know. We'll be bringing you back for part 2 of this interview, and keep us posted on your success.
Yeah, I can't wait to do that.